Okay, so each of you attended the Economic Summit last month, so I'd like to start by asking if you could give a very brief, summary of a takeaway that you had from that summit, a key outcome that came from the summit. Do you want to start, Doug?
Sure. So there were three things that we tried to relay at that summit. The first is that as we talk about a lot, there's a skill shortage right now that employers are facing. But it's a skill shortage that's kind of equally split between STEM fields and non-STEM fields. A lot of people are also looking for managers, human resource communications workers. Second thing we said is that the skill shortage that we're facing right now is really going to kind of be overwhelmed with an education shortage in just a few years because we're not producing enough people with a level of education beyond high school to fill the jobs that are going to be created. And then the other is that we may not be able to fill all those jobs with just in-state people. Because of demographics and the fact that we're going through the retirement of the baby boomers, we've got to do a lot better job at trying to attract more out-of-state people that come to school here to be able to fill the jobs over the next decade.
Sam?
Yeah, and just I'm a real estate guy, so talking about education, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. But I was actually, I'm floored by Detroit. So having it in Detroit, and my big focus is placemaking, and a big focus of the discussion in Region 4 was where we stack and what are the perceptions of, and going back to what Doug said about attraction, what are the perceptions of Michigan, West Michigan, Detroit, et cetera, versus the realities. And I think this was an early theme with the governor as well, is we're been very down on ourselves, and I think we need to be really focusing on what opportunities are here and instilling passion in our younger people to participate in the reinvention of Michigan affords us an incredible opportunity. The young people that work for us are really, they want things more than simple vocation. They want to know that they're moving the needle. They want to participate in their communities, and I think in Michigan, that's a tremendous advantage that we have.
Paul?
What struck me was the conversation about the high demand jobs. My employer is DTE Energy, and we were in the category of worrying about skilled trade positions, engineers and IT specialists, and those skilled in project management. But what struck me was how much we had in common with other businesses in the state who were looking for the same types of positions to fill. We have a maturing workforce. A third of our employees will be eligible for retirement in the next 10 years, and we're not unlike many other businesses. So that reminded me of how intense the competition will be for high demand positions, and how important it is for education to continuously improve, but also for business to continuously improve and how it connects with education. And secondly, placemaking is really important. We can have great talent supply, but if we don't have healthy, vibrant core cities that will keep talent in the state, we're in trouble.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, two significant takeaways. The most important is probably the need for us to focus on connecting young people to opportunities. I think some of the folks, the young kids who were on stage, talked about the need for networking and how that has been a really positive outcome as a result of the economic summit. And so finding creative ways to ensure that all of our young people, irrespective of the type of curriculum they're pursuing, whether it's a vocational or whether it's something in higher ed, it's important for us to have effective networking so they get connected to the kinds of opportunities that are there. And then building on that, this idea of education, talent, and business somehow becoming much more connected than they are right now is pretty important. And there seems to be, at least from the sessions that I participated in, a little bit of a disconnect between education, business, and talent, and how all those things come together to create vibrant economic opportunities in our state.
Bill?
Well, I came away energized. So it's easy in Michigan to focus on problems, which we often do. So at first blush, this looked like just another problem. We've got businesses now that are starting to grow, but they can't hire people because they're not skilled. But if we get this right, think what will happen. So then what we're going to have is hardworking Michiganders, now skilled in what they need to do, making products for everybody else around the world. I like the way this is going to turn out. But it's got to be hard work on all of our parts. So when I went back to my shop, I said, how many interns are we going to have this summer? So I got how many we're going to have. Well, what are the rules? Well, they have to start on this date, they have to end on that date, and all these rules. That's crazy. Can't we be more flexible? We need interns. We're going to learn from it. They're going to learn from it. And I say on both sides of this equation, employer as well as workforce developers, including educational organizations, we've got to get together and make this work. And we've got to be realistic about how we do it. And yes, it's going to be a little bit hard to accommodate everybody's schedule, but that's what today is. But if we get this right, think what that means for this great state.
Speaking of Detroit, and I have to check in to see how this is going, but Dan Gilbert at Quicken Loans, I think he hired maybe close to 1,000 interns last year, and he's working with other employers to try and get more interns in the summer downtown, because what it does, in addition to all the things that it does at the companies, it creates energy and foot traffic downtown. So, and they're organizing after-work activities for the interns downtown through another nonprofit organization. And it's just creating more buzz and more energy. And who wouldn't want to work downtown and go to a ball game at the end of the day? So anyway. Now, specific to the summit last month, I think on the screen we're going to show, Paul, you referenced this. This was the job forecast from employers, and here were the needs. Okay, these were the high demand areas, and Doug, I think you referenced that there was a mix between STEM and non-STEM job needs. So what was new about this? What surprised anybody? Anything from this list that surprised anybody?
Well, the one thing that we also, I think, talked about at the summit was basically that you can have a very high demand set of jobs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in undersupply or oversupply in that field. So, for example, one of the things that we pointed out was that, for example, with engineers, there are some engineering fields actually right now where we are producing more engineers, like civil, mechanical, electrical engineers, the traditional engineering fields, than actually we're projected to have demand for. It's some of these newer engineering fields, some of the ones that you see up here on the screen, where we're in undersupply. And so it's hard to make generalizations about even STEM unless you work kind of a level below in detail.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything about this list?
Well, I would say our general lack of knowledge of these in-demand professions is really something that caught me a little bit by surprise. But we had done a lot of work on this when I was in Ann Arbor, working at Ann Arbor Spark, on focusing on the need for talent. In the Ann Arbor area, we tended to focus on high-value, knowledge-based talent. But there's also demands in the vocational areas, skilled trades, et cetera. But we just don't have a really solid understanding of the demand that's out there for some of these professions. And so that's when I talk about our employers talking to talent, talking to education, that's what I mean. If we talk to each other, this kind of understanding should not come out of a summit. It ought to be in front of us all the time.
You know, one of the things that, if I were an educator sitting in this room, I'd look at this list and think, okay, but what's to predict that these are the demands that will be long-term? Look what happened with the auto industry in 2008. Are we preparing people? I have heard from community colleges, one in particular that has a very strong technical focused curriculum, that they're preparing people, then there weren't jobs. They were told there was a huge demand, and then there weren't jobs. So what do you say to the educators who are probably thinking, yeah, really? How long is this going to last? And what guarantees do we have that we're not training people for jobs that won't exist in 3 years or 5 years? I know we had a little technical snafu, but if anybody could actually listen to what I was saying and could answer the question,
I make one comment there, and it ties this question with the previous one. When I first saw this list, I was a little surprised about the skilled trades, because historically, you know, Michigan has been a manufacturing state, and we've prided ourselves in the wonderful skills that we have to support manufacturing. And now that we need them again, where is everybody? And we've often said, well, we want to be a knowledge-based economy and a service-based economy. We don't want to be in manufacturing anymore. Well, like it or not, one of the key strengths of this great state is manufacturing, especially advanced manufacturing. Yes, when it comes to commodity products at low price, it may be that in other foreign countries, China, whatever, they can do it better than we can. But with advanced manufacturing, we can top the best of them. That's why a lot of the tech centers and whatnot are still in this great state of Michigan. And so the skilled trades, we learn this at Business Leaders, a lot of those skills have left the state and looking where they're elsewhere. So we've got to attract them back. And I know in Western Michigan, where I'm involved in our economic development, that's the most immediate need that we currently have, and that was a surprise to me. But to your point, as these skills grow, there's usually a piece of technology associated with a welder or whatnot. So it's going to require not just a welding skill, but some other technology to work this piece of technology that will make our skills even better. So we need to make sure that we can predict the future, but also have training in place that will allow us to continuously be proficient at all of these jobs.
Excuse me, thank you. Paul?
Yes, well, almost every breakout session at the first summit not only talked about these high-demand skill sets, but also the importance of the soft skills that accompany them. And the students at the earlier panel addressed it so well. But adaptability, critical thinking skills, analytical skills, the ability to work in teams are all so important accompanying these skill sets, because jobs will change. And in fact, employers like the one I work for, and I think most employers today, look for people, yes, with skill sets, but those who can constantly adapt to the changing demands of the workplace.
Yeah, I'd like to underline that and put it in bold. I mean, at least speaking for myself. I mean, we're not a big shop. We have 37 employees, but you know, it's paramount to me. It is passion and problem solving. I mean, someone's ability. You know, we can train and on the job, et cetera. That's why, you know, and you know, further on, I'll probably talk more about this because it's sort of a theme. But instilling passion and having someone's ability to see a problem and find, we call it finding the pony in the poop. Just as opposed to just simply identifying an issue and coming to a higher up and saying, you know, here's the problem, being able to address a potential solution. And that, you know, that's learned behavior, and it can be instilled by educators, but it can also be instilled through internships or actually, you know, going to seeking out the educational institution. You know, internships are sort of one way, but perhaps, you know, we could do a better job of reaching out and actually making ourselves available to the classroom.
But I'm still thinking about the educators in the room, looking at this list and saying, okay, if I ramp this up tomorrow, will the jobs be there for the students that there's an implicit promise that if you're in this program, you're going to find work in Michigan. Doug?
Yeah, Mary, I think that, you know, just like anything in life, right, it's hard to say that this is the answer. And I think that's what we're kind of struggling with here a little bit. But I think what we do know, if you look forward over the next couple of decades, and even if you look back over the last decade or two, what we find is a combination of what's being set up here in this panel. You need people that have the skills to be able to adapt with their careers throughout their entire career, the ability to analyze problems, the ability to take on different challenges, and a lot of that comes from a good liberal arts education. On the other hand, we also know that as technology is taking over the world and more of our jobs are being driven by specialized fields, it is probably not a bad idea for you to get at least one specialized technical type of experience in your education, and you know what, you're probably going to have to get a few more through the course of your career as well.
Okay. There's another slide that we need to show, and that is on page 4 of your executive summary from the summit. It's regarding talent acquisition challenges. These were discussed at the summit, and the list is showing up on the screen. And I'm curious if there are any specific things that you might recommend or suggest to the educators in the room about how to meet some of these challenges that are on the screen.
Well, one I just follow up with what I just said is I think the best thing that education can do is expose kids to the different kind of career opportunities that are out there. I mean, I know you know, it was years ago, but I had trained to be a civil engineer because I thought that I wanted to be an architect. And all of a sudden, the civil engineering profession crashed back in the 1970s, and I had to get into political science, and the rest is history. So, I mean, it's a good example of how I didn't realize, you know, what the opportunities were then. But my sense is that it's not a lot better now. So the more that educators, I think, can get kids exposed to just the wealth of options that are available to them, they're going to get a much better ability to adapt when they come out of school.
Mary, I would say, you know, the aging out of our workforce is one that I'm pretty passionate about, and it's one that we've taken on at the MATC to really try and solve the challenge that we have there. I mean, we had a lost decade where Michigan lost nearly 750,000 jobs, and a lot of those were in some of these disciplines that we were just looking at on the previous screen, particularly in the skilled trades. I mean, that was an area where Michigan could, in fact, deliver the best and the brightest capability. And we lost a lot of those folks because they were retired or forced to retire. And so what we've tried to do is find ways to bring those folks back into the workforce. We've got a program we call Shifting Gears. The idea behind that is to really help folks who are mid and late career professionals find whatever that new opportunity might be. And we try and direct those individuals towards some of the in-demand professions that we have in front of us right now, the ones that we were just looking at on the previous screen. So it's efforts like that and the opportunity that exists with the aging workforce, people like all of us sitting here on the stage, I guess. So that you have to say the was.
Somebody's saying speak for yourself.
Yes, Sam has less gray hair than you.
Because I kick it off.
See, we're the counterpoint to the panel that was just before us.
But in all seriousness, this aging workforce should be looked at as an opportunity as opposed to a missed missed opportunity for our state.
Any other thoughts on this list? Yes, Sam.
You know, the two that are obviously pertinent to real estate are obviously the ability to retain college graduates and the perception of Michigan. Those are things that I am extremely passionate about because they touch on place, and I'm glad that Paul said placemaking because it would have seemed disingenuous if it were coming from me. You know, so much of workforce and vocation, et cetera, surrounding by location. And you know, we have these great cities that are emerging, and we got to keep our foot on the gas in that respect. I mean, having vibrant urban areas and access to Great Lakes and access to the outdoors is extraordinary. And you know, I was really struck. You know, I am all the time with Detroit. Just all this magnificent infrastructure waiting. And I think it's extraordinary what Dan Gilbert is doing. And you know, in Grand Rapids, we sort of have, I pinch myself all the time because the things that are happening in that city now are things that we've been collectively working on for 25 years now.
Absolutely. I remember I was the education reporter, as I mentioned, at the Grand Rapids Press. I remember walking downtown before the Board of Education meetings on Monday night and thinking, okay, my choice for dinner is the knife and fork at the Pantland Hotel or Mr. Fables. And those were the two choices. And when I come back to Grand Rapids and see the remarkable, and you're right, it's several decades of placemaking downtown, it's remarkable.
We've just, I mean, just an example. This is maybe not necessarily germane to education, but directly, but I think it speaks volumes. We were able to beat out Austin, Texas, and you know, some other key locations in attracting talent from other locations. Right now, I have folks from San Francisco that actually want to come and work for us. That because they, in quote unquote, you know, in San Francisco, it costs me so much just to live, and in Grand Rapids, you're actually doing stuff. And the work that you're doing is moving the needle for the community. And this is actually where I think education can come in too, is that, you know, I'm a business owner, but you know, I started my business, obviously we're about making money. But first, it began with a passion. It began with a vision to do something. And getting folks involved with understanding that passion is extraordinary because, you know, as an employer too, it's great to have people that have skills, et cetera. It's incredibly important, but having passion, because we work long hours, And having folks that actually believe in what you're doing is extraordinary. And I think that's a tremendous advantage we have.
To the placemaking point, I believe, Mike, that video that we saw at the very beginning this morning, which was such a terrific montage of placemaking, whether it was cities, Grand Rapids or Detroit or other cities, the recreational opportunities, snowboarding and water and all those things. I believe that's an MEDC video that is available to anyone to be able to post or link to. So if you, even for attracting students perhaps, it might be something that the higher ed community might want to take advantage as well.
Yeah, sure. We've invested in a whole series of Pure Michigan business attraction, tourism, and talent attraction media. And so I would encourage any of you who are interested to please visit our website or contact our organization. We'd be happy to make that available to you.
I want to also note about Detroit. Bill, you were talking about skilled trades and that sort of thing, and this idea of employers projecting out more about what the needs are in the future. I believe Pam Moore at the Detroit Workforce Organization, they're doing a big thing at the end of the month to look at, okay, we've got all these projects. There's this new bridge going across the river. I don't know, we have wonderful. And M1 rail, and possibly a new hockey arena. So a whole bunch of stuff is coming down the pipe, and they're putting the group together now to look at what the workforce needs will be. And I think it's going to be a showcase collaboration. So I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I was just going to add another item on the list, a limited awareness of skilled trade opportunities, and you started to address that. But in the utility industry, for example, we know we're going to have a shortage of linemen and pipe fitters. So we're working specifically with community colleges and our unions in partnering to train people, talent for those positions. But I do wonder how many of those kinds of partnerships are one-off arrangements, and to what extent can we work better as an industry, and can the community colleges and higher ed institutions work together to coordinate not only the demand problems but the supply problems?
Okay.
Just a real quick thought too. This is an education summit, and we've been talking a lot about what educators could do, but it strikes me looking at the list, there are two other legs to the stool here too, and one of it is business. I mean, we have been meeting with some of the college recruiters on campus, and one of the things they tell us is that even though we've got, to Bill's point, all these great jobs in some of our advanced manufacturing industries today, the kids' perception of manufacturing isn't very good. And in fact, their perception of the auto industry, which is our signature industry in the state, is even worse. And it's because of all the ups and downs that industry's gone through. So one of the things I think that business needs to consider is how can we improve the image of our industries in the state. And the other is, really parents. Paul talked about the skilled trades. Every time I get out and talk to groups about the importance of those jobs, I get everybody, feeling enthusiastic in a room like this that, yeah, we need to do that, until I turn it around and say, well, would you be proud of having your son or daughter be a pipe fitter? And I get a lot of blank looks. And it feels like to me that, we need to start embracing the fact that these are terrific jobs for a lot of kids. And until the parents start to get their arms around that and embrace kids that come back with that enthusiasm, I think that we're not going to be able to get to where we want to be.
Okay.
The only thing Mary, I'd add to that is that the biggest force for change is a well-paying job. So what we're doing under the governor's leadership, and all of us in this room, is focusing primarily on jobs creation. That's it, jobs, jobs, jobs. And if we have that vibrant jobs, we can make these connections we talked about. You go down this list, we can solve most of those challenges. Those challenges can be overcome. Yes, they're there, but we can overcome all of them. Retain the college students, improve the perception of manufacturing, improve the perception of Michigan as a good place to work, etc. So it's within our grasp.
Now, to wrap up, what I'd like each of you to think about and offer some final thoughts on just what each of you can give us in terms of what do you hope, this is a room of primarily educators, although there are some employers in the room as well, what do you hope will be achieved today? So,
Barry, you're looking at me.
I am, because you're number one on the list there.
Okay. I think the single most important thing that could come out of this session would be a commitment by particularly the education community to really look at your career counseling and your career curricula programs, and really think about how those could be beefed up and expanded, and to give the kids, not just in high school, but earlier on as well, as much exposure as they can to different career options. Too many kids come out without even knowing what possibilities exist.
Two, I actually, one sort of globally, and then I just actually, when I was hearing the students up here, I wrote down at a personal challenge. The one is to skate where the puck is going, which we've been talking a lot about that. And I think that really has to do with being more connected with business. We utilize interns and internships a lot, but that we could do better. I think I'm very fortunate that I guest lecture a couple times a year at Grand Valley and Central, and Central has a real estate focus in their business. But improving that connectivity, I think, and having the professors and us being able to show real world examples to the students, as opposed to XYZ example that could be in New York or whatever. Bringing it home, I think, could be incredibly powerful. And then my personal challenge for myself is I have had a lot of connection with college-age kids, but we've done precious little with secondary. And so my personal challenge takeaway is to in our business is to provide more mentorship and maybe job shadowing for because it starts early. I mean, if the folks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, none of those students had a real job shadowing or any kind of experience in K-12. So that was maybe one, but out of 6. So.
And really just to let them to try to get them to understand what we do.
Okay, Paul?
Well, I hope today will be a starter conversation that continues between business and education on how we can better connect. We have some really strong internship programs and co-op programs, apprenticeships that exist in the state, but they can always be improved, and we can learn from our best examples. Doug referenced it, but I'm a parent with a son in college, liberal arts student who really needed some career counseling, and frankly, we went to a private career counseling because today, at least in some higher ed institutions, there isn't very good integration between academic and career counseling. And I really do think we need to talk together about that issue. And finally, I think the education community can let the business community here know where advocacy is important. I do think Common Core standards are really important, but so are the soft skills, and so key to the soft skills. So key to the soft skills are teachers who really are good at helping students learn. And teacher development is really a key part of education improvement. Business knows something about continuous improvement. We need to share our knowledge.
I'm wondering if there are any programs that have teachers. And we've talked a lot about students, but maybe K-12 teachers at major employers might be an idea. Mike?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the potential that exists between business and the academic world to get better aligned. And I often talk to mostly community college and university professionals as opposed to K through 12. I haven't spent as much time there. But in most of my conversations, there is a lot of apparent connectedness, but that doesn't always translate into opportunities for students to pursue various careers that may be more in demand right now. So I'm just hoping that one of the outcomes from this is a clear path of connectedness between students, the academic professionals who deliver the education, and the business community, so that there's a very seamless way for students to find careers regardless of what they are. And then one final comment. I graduated from high school in the early 1970s, and every student that I recall had 2 opportunities, either a vocational opportunity or a track they could pursue, or a college prep track. And I don't know if that's still the case in the K through 12 system, but it sure made for a lot more opportunities for folks to pursue skilled trades and other vocational professions. And they were viewed as favorable back in the early 70s. I don't know if that's still the case now, so I'm speaking a little bit without knowledge, and I'm sure some of the academics in the room will tell me that that's still an option. But if it's not, and if it's not in your region, in your school district, I think it should be, because a lot of our kids really do want to pursue those vocational types of occupations.
Just a note, I believe that we'll be hearing from Michigan Teacher of the Year from last year or the year before, who's from Oakland County and is very involved in career and technical education. So those programs are still out there. They just have a different label. Bill?
I agree with what Mike said. I mean, the solution here is connectivity. And I shared with this group when we met last month at the other summit that at our company, we're in life sciences. We've worked closely with Western Michigan University by taking the graduates from there that have come to work for us for a few years to go back to their professors and the chairman of their department and change their curriculum a little bit. If only I'd have been taught this, if only I'd have learned that. So we've started that process. We just also engaged with the head of the chemistry department there, again, to provide the students, in their own words, better training that they need. So they can still have this liberal thinking opportunity, but at the same time, given some specific skills. So let them work it through, and it's worked out quite nicely. But we're going to energize that even more, and I would suggest to anyone here that that kind of collaboration specifically is what's going to go a long way to get us back where we need to be.
Thank you. Well, collaboration is definitely going to be part of the regional breakout discussion. First, join with me in thanking this terrific panel for sharing their thoughts.